Hey guys, T-Bowler. Today I got to look at the Bismarck for you. Here's my Von Hipper build. I do want to point out that the build is not necessarily what I would recommend as optimal. As I was grinding the German battleships, I had Celiax and Von Hipper kind of reciprocal builds so I could test between the two of them. I will plan on doing a Von Hipper video shortly, and we'll kind of test out different modes. I did get that French commander Jojard, or as I call him, Jojo. I think he's a pretty strong candidate, at least on paper, for German battleship inspiration. I haven't tried him out yet, though. 2 games today. First one is on Haven on the weak side. I like to put replays up on here. There's a couple maps with weak sides, i.e. 3 people on my team that spawned on the east side, 6 on the west. And it's mirrored on the north, so they have 6 over here and 3 on the west. I get a lot of, or I read a lot of talk on like either Reddit or Discord or whatever. People are frustrated with the weak side, strong side maps. They don't think they're fair. They think they're hard to play. So I like to show them what I like to do on the weak side here. Since the basic theory on these maps, at least how they are currently, is that they tend to cycle clockwise because these people that are on their strong side tend to aggressively push strongly down south, try and kill myself and the other 2 people that spawned over here, and the people on my strong side, i.e. on that southwest side. If they play it typically, they will push very rapidly north and try and kill those 3 people. And then in domination mode, you try and capture these objectives, and it kind of goes around in a circle. So my theory on these is playing the weak side. I want to get into position to slow them down. Now you need to capture your objective on your side. You see they got C. I concede C. We did have a destroyer that was there that potentially could have captured that. I would never... that's not the suggested play. That's once in a blue moon you have an opportunity to capture the weak side objective. But that should not be your goal going in. Your goal going in for a destroyer should be to come far to the east here or far to the west, scout, and then cruisers, battleships. What I do is I get into position like here, basically where we're about to engage each other. Then I turn around and begin kiting away. My goal is to just slow these guys down. If I can kill some of them, good. But if my team pushes quickly to the north, which in this particular match they don't for one reason or another, that's not really the point. But if my team pushes aggressively and I slow them down, that throws off the rhythm that allows our team to capture objectives while they're not capturing additional objectives, and it just kind of throws the natural flow off and gives your team the advantage. Here I need to be popping the sonar. You can see lots of torps coming in. A little bit of early warning would have helped. I do want to point out this friendly DD attempted to smoke me. I always appreciate that. That's a nice play. But destroyer players, there's one good time where you should be smoking up a battleship, and that's when they're in an existentially threatening situation, which you could make an argument maybe that was because of all those torps. But basically, if the battleship fires, there's a big smoke firing penalty, and for battleships, the detection radius is quite large. Like it's not their full detectable or detectability rating, but it's very large. So effectively, smoking a battleship is useless if they shoot. If they're kind of limping away, running for their life, and it looks like they might stop shooting, or it would give them the option to stop shooting and disengage if you smoke them, then that's a time that you could consider doing it. What you want to do is smoke cruisers. If the cruiser player is smart enough to sit in the cloud for 1 minute, 2 minute, fire the guns undetected, that's a very strong play. And if you're playing in divisions, that's something, a destroyer cruiser combo is very strong because of that. One player can smoke up the cruiser. Cruiser can just bomb on people all day undetected. So that's when I would recommend smoking for teammates. Again, if you're trying to smoke for random people, usually it's not going to pay off because a lot of random players just don't know what's going on. They wouldn't recognize. A lot of random players will just sail through your smoke. So usually for random battles, I would just say save your smokes for yourself defensively or offensively, however you want to use it. Now I've had a couple instances here in this sequence where the fireworks are going off on my ship and they're shooting at destroyers. Secondaries are very useful against destroyers, either hitting them and damaging them, setting them on fire or whatever, but it also serves as a pretty good deterrent. A lot of destroyer players don't want to sail into a barrage of, secondary guns going off in their direction, so that's a good use for them. There's a few uses that'll pop up in this video, and we'll talk about more when the secondaries are good. If you're not familiar with my thinking on the German battleships and builds in general, I would never recommend making the secondaries the main focus of your builds. Note the name. You got the main gun and you got the secondary gun, or the guns. And what main means is that's the big focus, so main gun's going to be where 90-95% of your damage is going to be coming from in most cases on these ships. And that anytime something is true in most cases, for your builds to be optimized, in my opinion, you should be focusing on that. Secondaries can be very strong in some cases, but a lot of times they're either not going to come into play at all, or they're just going to be a mild annoyance at best. So putting a lot of points and effort into those secondaries, in my opinion again, is not the strongest play. Now, I haven't been narrating this whole game a lot. We've had a couple different topics come up. But from what I've been doing down the entire side here is just basically varying my speed between full, quarter, just slowly going down here, angling against these ships, taking shots when I can, helping eliminate some of those destroyers, which we got them all, so that's very strong and increases your odds quite a bit. But because I've been angling a lot and just making it really frustrating for these guys to shoot me, if they have someone else to shoot at, they tend to turn their guns towards them and take that shot. Now, am I scoring a lot of damage? Once in a while we'll get some decent shots, but again, I'm slowing them down. Now, my team is not executing the complementary play to what I'm doing, which is to push north, capture A, capture C or whatever it is, and just push aggressively into their weak side, kill all those players. Because then, once that occurs, by me having slowed them down to the extent that I have, then we basically have control of the entire map. There's a lot of crossfire opportunities that come into play, and it's very hard for the team that failed to push through their strong side to come through that situation and win the game. So Haven has a strong side, weak side setup. Fault line has a strong side, weak side setup. On the south side of fault line, the strong side is again mirrored here at southwest, and the north side strong side is on the northeast. So both of those maps have circular motions like this, and the same play works well in both instances. If you're on the weak side, just try and slow them down. But you need to go into that play with the mentality that you're going to turn around 100% and you're going to be playing defensively for pretty much the majority of the game, sometimes the entire game. And where you're going to get in trouble playing the weak sides is if you just decide, I can take on 6 ships with anywhere from 1 to 3 ships, however many ships on your weak side commit to that play. A lot of times your teammates are just going to turn around and run away because they recognize they're on the weak side, but they don't know how to effectively play it, so they just do what they can to get towards the people on the strong side, which creates a black hole situation where everyone clumps together, and that's also a losing strategy. So because of these spawns, at least how they're currently configured, these maps are very difficult to win on unless you know what you're doing, and that's why a lot of people get frustrated with them, and that's why I like to put up replays from time to time explaining my strategy for dealing with these spawns. Now at this point, just from a purely positional standpoint, ignoring ship's health and all that stuff, I like what their team's got going on better. They got one ship to the west, one to the east, and one kind of to the north, a little bit to the west. And there's a lot of map control there. There's a lot of crossfire opportunities. Our team is essentially bundled up at the moment, which I don't... Positionally, is not very strong. So what I need to do here, now that the Vanguard's been spotted, I'm trying to angle against both the New Mexico and the Vanguard. Vanguard's the primary threat. New Mexico failed platooned his way up into Tier 7 match. He can do damage. I can't ignore him. But I need to primarily angle towards the Vanguard. I do have the additional bonus here of having this guy kind of towards the tail end of my ship, so I could successfully angle to both. I do have the ship to the north that is in a crossfire situation, but you always got to pick who's the biggest threat to me currently. Vanguard's a lot closer. Whatever ship was to the north was dealing with someone else. It looks like he cleared up that threat now, so he may turn his attention my way. But the Vanguard is doing a pretty good job angling here, and over this next sequence you should keep an eye on him. He does... My team, I think it's Iowa moving all the way to the east. Looks like he might be out of position, but I'm fine with that. He could create crossfire situations or help deal with that ship to the north moving there. I do have another Iowa that's directly to my north. He's kind of reversing backwards around an island. That's not a surprise. Most Iowa players only go in reverse. So, I'm just kidding. It's probably a lot easier for him in this case to back up than turn around and go forward. So that's just my daily Iowa joke for you. Anyway, what I'm trying to do is create distance between me and the close Iowa to make it a lot harder for the ship to angle against him. That means I'm pushing west, southwest, trying to create a gap between me and my friendly. Now this Vanguard plays it very well. Essentially what you want to do if you're trying to angle against two ships that are fairly near to you is kind of point your nose roughly in between, at the halfway point between those two ships. Now he needs to, in his mind, identify who's the bigger threat. The Iowa's probably the bigger threat than the Bismarck. So he's primarily angling towards him, but he does maintain a steep enough angle here where he's going to achieve some bounces, some ricochets. And I think he played this pretty well. We do, again, have the fireworks going off. They do set a fire. Fireworks for battleships, in terms of causing damage, you might notice a little tick of damage here or there if the RNG is particularly good, but primarily for battleships, the benefit is causing fires. It forces them to use the damage count. Now, if there was a different situation, I could consider switching to HE shells and then try and set him on fire again, get another permanent fire going. It might not be a really bad play here because he is really low, but you can see he's in the middle of a heal, so Vanguard heals are very strong. I think that's going to even outpace the damage that would be caused by a single fire. And he's low enough that I want to stick with AP and try and sink him as quickly as possible and get him off the board. Very dangerous ship for me to be dealing with, but I'm doing my best to angle against him, and now I do have another Iowa pushing forward that I am attempting to angle against both of them. So I'm kind of trying to get rid of this Vanguard as quickly as possible, and we are able to get him there. Now there's two ships left in me. I believe they're both Iowas. They're both currently pointing right at each other, and the Iowa's obscured by the island, but he is pushing forward. So what that enemy Iowa should be doing is just essentially stopping where he is right now. So he has only one gun firing at him. He does have quite a bit of health, and if he plays it right, he can potentially kill that Iowa, and then I'm low enough health if he noticed that. He could win the game quite easily. But I'm content staying here. He's pushing in. If he stays on his current course, he's going to be broadside to me. I'll get at least one or two salvos in, but for some reason he kind of inexplicably presents full broadside to the near Iowa, which blows him out of the water. So I'm not exactly sure why he decided to do that. I think he decided he was closing in a little too closely and wanted to disengage, but if you're going to turn, you got to time it after they shoot and you bounce the shot. You cannot turn when they're in the middle of the reload, because by the time the guns are reloaded, they'll do that to you. So I don't know what was going through that guy's mind. He could have had a pretty good chance of winning that game, but a little bit of a mistake there. Here we do have a game on North. I do want to give you just a little bit of a heads up. This is one of the most frustrating teammates that I've ever had as this destroyer on my team. I don't like to call out players for bad plays because I understand a lot of players aren't just as experienced as I am or other players. So usually 99% of the time when I point out something that someone else is doing, I'm just doing that to teach or give my ideas on how to improve gameplay. This particular player actively tries to throw it at the end of the game. You'll see that it causes frustration for me and anyone else in my team that's alive at that point. That's really all I'm going to say about it. I don't want to harp on it, but this is kind of the 1% where, for whatever reason, this player was actively trying to throw the game, which I really don't appreciate. If you don't care about winning at all, just go play against AI. The AI players don't care about winning either, and you can have just as much fun shooting ships. So for north here, what this east side, you see these two big islands. I see a lot of players play on the far end of those islands a lot, and what you need to understand on that map is you're taking your gun out of the fight for 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 minutes, however long it is you're stuck behind these islands. So I would never play on that far eastern side of these two islands. I consider it a dead zone. Might get over there once in 20 games on this map, but it should be kind of ignored basically, and you need to kind of aggressively take out C here. Here's a mistake right off the bat. I had this Fletcher sighted. I can see how far away he is, and I can guess that his torps are roughly launched from that distance, which makes me within those range of those torps. In my mind, though, I kind of ignored that or was focused on something else. Who knows what I was thinking. But I was attempting to stop, hoping these torps would burn out, and I do end up taking one on the nose. Forced me to burn a damage con. So again, if you know how far the destroyer is currently, you can kind of have a pretty good idea of where they were when they launched them. And in that case, I wasn't 100% sure I was within those torp ranges, but it should have been readily apparent that there's a good chance I was, and I should have just stayed going full speed and tried to actively dodge the torps that way. Would have been a little bit better play. Now here you can see the problem with this dead zone I was talking about earlier is on the south side there is one ship that spawns actually on that side. What they need to do is push into C and support that as opposed to sailing up here. Very easy to counter. You can see once I'm aware that there's a ship here, all we got to do is turn our ship around. We can counter them. But throughout the entirety of the game, where we've already got 20k damage and things are happening, this enemy Bismarck is just yet to actually spawn into the game, I guess is one way you can look at it. He hasn't existed for all intents and purposes. He's just repositioning himself. This Fletcher's caused me a lot of consternation, though. This destroyer near me should be shooting at him if he's afraid of him and doesn't think he can kill him. I mean, he can just at least try and take some shots. But so I'll keep pinging the target, but that's neither here nor there. There's not a whole lot I can do about him at this point. I do need to deal with this Bismarck, because if he does get around us and he's not being countered, then we're going to be in a huge crossfire situation, which is a problem. So my primary focus does need to be on this Bismarck. But again, he has to come around their broadside, or he doesn't have to, but he does, which a lot of players are going to do. And we're just able to take some pretty easy shots here. Secondaries are both going off at each other again. Semi-useful, but it's not the way I would primarily focus on setting up these ships. Now the German BB line has a lot of different viable ways to set it up, and there's plenty of room for debate. If you're going to say CLX is better, I'm not going to necessarily disagree with you, but it's because of his extra heals and his survivability aspects. Making the secondaries a little bit longer range and slightly more accurate is not the best feature of CLX, in my opinion, and I would not focus on that. I run in slot 1 aiming systems mod. It gives you a little bit of a boost to your secondaries, but again, it makes the main guns more effective. Slot 4, you have a choice between secondary reload time or main battery reload time, I believe. Again, I'm focusing on the main batteries in that situation. You can see here we're getting fires and stuff like that randomly, and that's a bonus of having really strong secondaries like you have in the Bismarck and the Tirpitz and some of the other German battleships. But again, if you're taking a look at my damage and take an honest look at the damage that you're causing in your own games in these ships, most of it is almost certainly coming from the main guns. So again, if you're going for an optimal build, that's the way I would go for it. Some people said they like to focus on the secondaries to have a change in play style or because it's fun or whatever. Those are fine reasons. If that's what you want to do, then I'm not going to say don't do it for those reasons, but if you're trying to make the Bismarck or these ships the best version of themselves, main guns, in my opinion, should be the focus. So we're able to take that Bismarck out and push that kind of ill-advised push that came from the dead zone. They do have that other ship, I think it's Colorado, kind of peeking through the little gap there. He's going to attempt to go through C. He's going to be my main focus now. We do need to stop him from capturing that base. And it's a little disappointing for me that we haven't captured it already. I think we had an Algerie push through C to try and drive off that Fletcher. Whether he killed him or scared him off, I'm not sure. But he removed that DD. Our DD's just been kind of hanging out instead of capturing the base. That should be his primary focus, is getting those points. You can say we've probably lost 100 potential points that our team should have at this point because we haven't captured this base. Which again, they put 2/3 of their spawn through this dead zone east side, and they had one destroyer. I chose to deal with the emerging threats on the east. I think that's probably what I should have been doing, but we had plenty of opportunity to capture C previous to this. And we'll talk about this, I guess, a little bit more, but I think most of you guys that watch my videos are doing so because you're trying to get better at the game and you're trying to win more games. So if you're trying to win more games and get better, capturing the objectives in domination mode is going to increase your win rate quite a bit, and focusing on them. When you ignore those objectives and try and kill every ship on the enemy team every time, that's how you lose these games. Now we've had kind of early warning secondaries going off against this destroyer being in the vicinity. He did have torps, or there's the secondaries going off there. Torps also in the area, and then we see the smoke. So I have to deal with the situation. Now, battleships pushing into smoke, generally not a good idea. It's going to be a losing proposition most instances. Exceptions here, we did identify that the torps were just launched, and well, I don't know, Akatsuki here, I don't know if I knew what the ship was at the time. It's got a quick reload on the torps, so you got to keep that in mind. But because the torps were launched and we do have sonar, which helped us spot the ship, we're able to push in there and deal with him. Which, again, not necessarily what you want to be doing with battleships. You really got to understand when you can push into a smoke with battleships, but it should not be your first kind of idea that pops in your head. That's kind of there's got to be a lot of things checked off on a checklist before that becomes a really strong play. And so we're turning around. I was going to pop that Algerie just because the guns were there once we came around the island, but he's removed. And I'm going to continue my turn and get back in a position to deal with this Colorado. Now, we're up on ships. Score-wise, a lot more competitive. They do have 2 capture points, so all things being equal, they will win this game just on points. Here's another benefit of the secondaries. You can see we're getting resets on the Colorado. Not position. The guns aren't in position yet. I do have them locked on to the left side, so they'll all be firing at the same position once I get into position. But those secondaries going off, we do get some reset ribbons. Gives you experience points and resets the base. Doesn't allow them to capture it. Now, because he's on the base, we're not getting the points from that position at the moment, which is a problem. But getting the resets in at least helps the situation somewhat. Now, the score starts to widen quite dramatically. It's going to get to the point where even if we kill another ship on their team, they're still going to be up on points. And again, that's because we're ignoring B. So I'm going to continue to ping this in frustration. And this Jervis next to me needs to get over to B and put pressure on it, at least stop them from getting points or captured potentially. Sitting here observing the situation with me in the Colorado is not helping the team. If he's trying to torp him, I can deal with this ship. You know, he should recognize 3/4 health Bismarck against a half health Colorado who's broadside to the Bismarck. You know, I should win this fight. Now, my advice is always don't trust your teammates, trust your enemies to play well. So if he's playing that way, that's fine. But at this point, if you're trying to win the game, the playbook needs to be kind of thrown out the window a little bit. And getting on B, he's got the mobility, he's got the detectability, concealment ratings to capture the point most effectively. And we're able to blow that Colorado out of the water. If I was in that Colorado and I didn't just get smoked like that, I would have been able to kill that Jervis no problem, close range. And then he decides to ram me for whatever reason. This is where his play kind of goes out the window. I'm not going to talk about it a lot, but you'll just see he kind of gives up and refuses to participate anymore. So I'm going to take a shot at him, and my other teammate's going to take a shot at him. You can say it's bad sportsmanship or whatever, but this guy's actively trying to throw the game from here to the end of the game. So you can weigh the situation on your own and decide if I was being too cranky or not. But here the Atlanta's poking out. I'm going to try and sink him. Situation's dire. Now you can say this Jervis doesn't want to push over there because there's an Atlanta, and I think the other ship is a Baltimore. Whether he knew what those ships were or not, I don't know. But destroyers, those are extremely threatening ships to destroyers because they're radar cruisers. I understand that. But again, late game situations where this is obviously a huge nail-biter situation, you kind of got to take some risks if you're trying to win the game. If you're just trying to goof off and you don't care about winning, then go play against the AI, please. Or don't play Tier 7, which in my opinion is should be the more competitive tier players that are more serious about the game. So it just gets frustrating when players either don't identify how to win or they just don't care. But he's trying to kill the Atlanta. I'm just going to kill the Atlanta just to get that out of his consciousness and let him focus on capturing B, which at this point he has no excuse not to do. He has protection from me to cover him if that Baltimore is up there in a position to shoot at him. That's fine. You staying alive at this late game situation where we're losing doesn't need to be your main goal anymore. You need to do what you need to do to win the game. So getting on B, as I'm strongly recommending to him, is the only option for him to do. He, for whatever reason, refuses to do it. I try and give him a love tap there to move him in the right direction. And I think this Gneisenau to my right is going to give him the same idea. He's really being a really poor teammate at this point. And here he just stops and puts his control down and takes the ball and goes home, essentially. So, again, 99 out of 100 times when I'm pointing out things that other players are doing, it's just to, if they happen to be watching, help them, but primarily just help you guys or even myself just by learning from the players of the play of other players. Not in this case. This guy was just being an asshole, frankly, so screw that guy. So now we're in a situation where we cannot win on points. We need to kill the ship. Time is running out. By the time I get around this island, might have time for 2 salvos if I'm lucky. So I think the Gneisenau on my right is turning around, but he's going to have a hard time getting into positions as well. We're on B, stopping them from getting points, but again, at this point, points are not going to win the game for us. We have to kill him. Now, sighting this ship here, you can see I don't have that triangle indicator on the screen saying that the majority of the shots were blocked, so I did take the shot. It was a little hurried, but again, I'm trying to get the 2 reloads off to give us the best chance, because we do have to sink this ship. But, had there been 2-3 more minutes on the clock, you'd want to push through until you're not going to be losing those salvos here. Secondaries again going off, that's not going to be a factor. We get 1 salvo off, mildly damage him, and this is kind of the Hail Mary pass here, and we are able to actually get him for the Kraken. So a bit of a nail biter. I don't think it needed to be had the certain teammates played a little bit better, but you're dealt the hand you're dealt with when it comes to teammates. We're all frustrated by them from time to time, myself included. So that's my look at the Bismarck. I hope you did enjoy it. If you did, please hit the thumbs up. If you're new to the channel, consider subscribing. There's a lot of World of Warships coming all the time. Questions, comments for me, leave them below, and we'll see you guys all later. All right, peace.